Hey guys, thanks for watching my channel today. So, do you ever want to start an argument with a bunch of bass fishermen? I have an easy question you can throw out to them. Just raise the question, what's the one fishing lure that you would call the deadliest fishing lure ever made? Now think about that for a second, because I asked that question not long ago to 3 or 4 of my buddies. And I mean, we had a discussion that probably lasted an hour. And every one of them had a different idea of what they thought would be the deadliest fishing lure ever made. What did I come up with? Well, in my humble opinion, there's a lot of good lures out there. And there's a lot of favorites, a lot of fishing lures that I really enjoy fishing with. But if I had to pick just one lure that is the deadliest, 12 months out of the year, north or south, doesn't matter. I'd have to say that one lure is probably the original floating Rapala. Now, that probably doesn't surprise some of you. On the other hand, there's some of you that may not think or may not agree with me. But just hear me out. There are thousands of lures that hang on tackle shop walls today. Plastic, silicone, tungsten, holographic finishes, rattles that sound like a baby's toy box. But long before all that noise, there was a simple piece of balsa wood with 2 treble hooks and a lip. And it might just be one of the deadliest lures that was ever created. And I'm talking about the Rapala floating minnow. Did you know that Rapala, the company, holds more national size records for a variety of fish than any other lure ever created? And that's compared to companies like Head that have been around forever, all the way back to the 1800s. But Rapala has been around a long time, and it's a very, very well-known lure. Here's what most people miss. This lure doesn't overpower a fish. It doesn't intimidate them. It doesn't rely on flash or vibration to force a reaction strike. It does something far more dangerous. It looks vulnerable. Think about this for a minute. If you walking down the street and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe you've had a couple of beers, you stumble a few times, you're well dressed, what do you think your chances are that somebody's going to come up and grab you and ask you for your wallet? Why do you think that'd be true? Is it because you're 5'8", or because you're one race or another race? No, I'm telling you, it's because you look vulnerable. Vulnerable. It's a hard word for me to even say. But let's just suppose in that same example that Arnold Schwarzenegger is walking down that same alley and he hasn't had anything to drink. And maybe he's carrying a suitcase that weighs 80 or 90 pounds and he carried it with 2 of his fingers. What do you think his chances are of getting jumped? Probably not real good. And there's a simple reason for that. He doesn't look vulnerable. So keep that in mind. When you apply that to fishing lures, some lures just look tough. Some lures look like the Arnold Schwarzenegger version. And then others, like a Rapala, they just look really vulnerable. That thin balsa body floats at rest, nose slightly up, kind of like a stunned bait fish that just made a mistake. And when you twitch it, it doesn't dart like a machine. It just kind of glides, it wobbles, it breathes a little, and then it stops again. Because balsa breathes. Plastic is consistent. Balsa has a soul. No two pieces are identical, and that subtle imperfection gives it life on the water. That rolling, hunting wobble is natural, not manufactured. And here's where it becomes deadly. You can fish it on the top like a waking minnow. You can twitch it beside a dock and let it float back up under into the strike zone. You can crank it down, stop it, and let it rise like an injured shad trying to survive. That rise, that slow, innocent float, that's when bass lose their discipline. A suspending bait hangs in place. A sinking bait drops away. But a floating Rapala rises towards safety. And predators attack prey that's trying to escape. It's a psychological trigger. I used to have a friend of mine, a guy named Chuck, that I used to fish with growing up. This guy was probably the best I'd ever seen fishing a plastic worm, but he was also extremely good fishing a floating Rapala. And I can remember one of the first trips he made down here to Florida to fish with me. We were fishing one of the canals on the east side of Florida, over towards Boca Raton, Deerfield Beach. And I'll never forget, I mean, I was catching fish pretty steadily, but he was getting big fish. And every time he'd cast out, he was throwing a floating Rapala. But he would throw that bait out, he'd twitch it once or twice, and then he'd just let it sit. And it was surprising how often the bass would just blow up on it. And it had to be due to the fact that it looked so vulnerable. It just looked like a fish. It looked like what they eat. It wasn't a manufactured type of look. It looked just like what they had for dinner last night. So this bait excels in cold water when fish don't want to chase something. It shines in clear water when fish really want to take a hard look at it before making a commitment. It's deadly around shallow wood, grass edges, and riprap, especially when you just pause it and use a stop and go retrieve. And it works really well in openings where most crankbaits would just snag. Well, let's talk about something else. Silence. No rattles, no clacking weights, just wood and hooks. In pressured water, especially today, that subtle presentation can outfish high-tech lures that scream out danger. It's caught giant smallmouth in northern lakes. It's fooled largemouth under Florida docks. Taken walleye, trout, pike, muskie, you name it. Because it represents the one thing every predator understands: an easy meal. And there's a reason it's been around for generations, while thousands of other next big things disappeared from the shelves. When a lure survives decades of innovation, electronics, sonar, and social media, it's not nostalgia, it's effectiveness. You can forward face a bass. You can scan a brush pile. You can mark structure with a GPS down to the inches. But when you make that cast, it still comes down to something that looks alive. A few lures in history have looked more convincingly alive than a floating Rapala, easing back to the surface after a twitch. Sometimes the deadliest thing in your tackle box is the quietest one. Give it a try, folks. Rapala is an incredible lure. Thanks for watching.